Like I mentioned at the top of the show, we had an incredible trade deadline that I unfortunately wasn't able to tap in with y'all until now. That's the toughest thing about having a Wednesday show is that the Thursday deadline means I have to wait an entire week. But that has allowed us to see some first impressions. That's allowed some of the thoughts and opinions to kind of settle in versus those instant, reactions to everything. I will say, this was probably one of my favorite trade deadlines in a while, and it's coming off of a lot of different things. Number one, my hope for this trade deadline wasn't as high. I'm kind of bracing myself every year to have slower deadlines or maybe not have as much action because of a couple things. The main thing being the apron. The apron is such a intricate thing and a highly detailed thing that a lot of teams have to move so much around to make moves happen, especially when you're going into that second apron, that it feels like it's a lot easier for teams from a roster construction standpoint to make deals happen in the offseason. The other thing that kind of combats that, though, is the play in. You know, a lot of teams feel so hopeful, and it does feel open this year. And the Eastern Conference feels like it's anybody's to take. And, those things kind of play a part. And we have so many teams that are competitive. We do have so many teams that are selling and, making things interesting at the bottom there. But it's also like a new age of information where the value of players are just not at its natural standpoint in my mind. We are seeing guys that would have a year or two ago go for several first round picks or multiple first round picks. They didn't even go for any first round picks this year. And it's kind of made things unpredictable around the league to the point where it's like I don't know if we should get as excited. But some of the moves that did go down excited me a bunch. One of my favorite trades and all of the deadline was the James Harden and the Darius Garland essentially swap. Right, there was some second round picks involved and whatnot, but the highlight of this trade was the Los Angeles Clippers looking at their future, realizing it was a little bleak, and deciding to sell right at the deadline. And the Cavaliers, I think, were one of the biggest winners of the deadline, being involved, realizing what they where they are and the opportunities that they have currently in the Eastern Conference. This was a really, really good move. So far, they are 2-0 in the James Harden era. Him and Donovan Mitchell have looked extremely comfortable together in the backcourt. Granted, they don't have Evan Mobley just yet. You can only imagine that things will continue to go up when he does finally return. And I think the All-Star break being right after the deadline allows them to not have to miss many more games without Evan Mobley. I've loved the James Harden and Jared Allen synergy that we've seen already in 2 games, and you can expect that to continue to grow. The one thing that I will say, they did give up 126 points to a Kings team that is the worst in the NBA. Started 2 rookies and also started Daquan Plowden, who I don't think too many of y'all that are watching is a familiar with that name. So that is one thing. But again, Evan Mobley will return. But yeah, I just loved everything about this move. It feels like they understood the assignment and they understood that this is a team that has a two-year window. I give a lot of credit to Donovan Mitchell kind of putting his foot down and letting it be known that I'm not essentially fully committed to sign an extension right now. We need to take another step in the right direction. We have to, get over that hump for me to sign on a dotted line. And that kind of signal to the Cavaliers that this was a time where they needed to be buyers and they needed to make some type of move that will make them better without, kind of mortgaging a lot of that core there. And for the Clippers, incredible situation for them to be in, right? To get younger, to think more about their future, to get out of the hamster wheel idea of just trying to throw everything in the kitchen sink and just go for this falsehood of championships when they're just not in that position. I loved it for them. It seemed very aware of them. And it opened up the other trade that we can talk about as well, the big Zoo trade, right? Zubac was traded to the Pacers and a very unique deal that got the Clippers, Benedict Mathurin, and some other things. But the main thing was in those 2 first round picks that they got with Benedict Mathurin, there is this heavily protected first round pick in this year from the Pacers. And we know the Pacers are not having the year that they had last year or the year before, but instead they're at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. And this pick is protected 1 through 4 and 10 through 30, which allows the Clippers a unique situation, potentially, depending on how the rest of the second half goes for the Pacers, to get a pick 5 through 9, which to me would be very huge for the Clippers, right? Everybody knows by now the Paul George, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander trade. They gave up everything. They gave up all of their picks. So for the last few years, the Clippers have not really had that opportunity to be invested in a lottery pick or in youth, and they've kind of went older and older and older and have been like big major buyers. This is the first time where they potentially could have a chance at getting a top 10 pick. And I think that would be very big for them on the heels of acquiring Darius Garland and kind of positioning themselves to go a little bit younger. And when you talk about a fifth overall, sixth overall, seventh overall pick in this potential draft class, I'm excited. And if you're a Clippers fan, I think you should be really excited. As tough as it may have been to see them sail at a time where they were kind of one of the hottest team, if not the hottest team in the NBA, after like the December 20th stretch where they went like 17-4 and they were kind of getting things together. The reality was that it isn't a championship team, right? And it's an expensive team that wasn't going to really bring you a championship. And there were going to be a lot of questions that needed answers in the offseason. So to be able to pivot from James Harden and get a Darius Garland, to be able to pivot from Big Zoo and potentially position yourselves to get a top 5 overall pick or a top 10 pick in general is going to be really good for their future. And I can only imagine what the Clippers will look like if they go into next year with Darius Garland and Nate Ament or Darius Garland and Keaton Wagler or anything like that. That would be a very fresh start, youthful start for them to really reconfigure the direction of how they want to pivot post Paul George, Kawhi, James Harden era. And we even got the report a couple days ago, again, from Mark Stein, where like after they sold James Harden and Zoo, a lot of teams called about Kawhi, which made me excited. I was hoping that was going to happen and be like the last domino to fall at the deadline. Like, oh my gosh, the Detroit Pistons have traded for Kawhi Leonard, because I think Kawhi, with the way he's playing right now, could have been a very, very big game changer as far as the landscape of the NBA right now, especially when it comes playoff time. But ultimately, the Clippers didn't do that. They stayed pat. They're going to take that into the offseason, which, again, I think would allow them to have a full, clear vision and allow them to really construct a trade that will allow them to get an insane return on Kawhi Leonard, especially if he's able to continue to be healthy and play at the level he's playing at right now. He's playing at an all-NBA level, one of the best players in the world on any given night. Another all-star nod. He's going to come in as a replacement. So if he's able to ride this hot streak that he's on into the offseason, I could see them getting even more additional assets to position themselves to kind of not necessarily rebuild, but retool in a youthful way and bring some excitement back to LA with a youth movement. So love that the Clippers trades and everything that they did. And for the Pacers, I think that's a unique trade as well. It's like, hey, if our first round pick falls out of the top 4, y'all can have it for Big Zoo, because we're bringing back a team next year that's going to have Halliburton, Nimhard, Neesmith, Siakam, Big Zoo. You know, you're still going to have Obi Toppin and TJ McConnell. That NBA Finals team that was a half away from being the champions will be right back. It'll look a little different, right? Miles Turner and Big Zoo, 2 different type of players. But for them to be able to do that while still giving themselves some cushion with the first round pick and not necessarily giving it all up, I think Kevin Pritchard really showed off his GMing skills with that, right? Like, you have this small window of intrigue if you're the Clippers from 5 through 9, but there is really upside that the Pacers could like win the lottery and bring Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonce or Cam Boozer into the mix of this team that is going to be positioned to not only be a playoff team, but should be positioned to be back into contention in the Eastern Conference. So love those moves as well. And then the Giannis thing. I did say that I felt like Giannis wasted a lot of time. Giannis and the Bucks, right? Because it was positioned to be like something was going to happen. And it didn't happen. And then they pretended to kind of troll us as if this was an inside thing and it was never going to happen and all of that. With that being said, I'm happy for Giannis. It never seemed like he wanted to leave or he was that, confident in putting himself out there. So now Giannis gets to stay in Milwaukee. His teammates can be secure. He can come back after All-Star weekend and the Bucks can make a playoff push. And the winning that he wants to do so bad in Milwaukee, he can fully, comfortably sit in Milwaukee and watch them build a winner. And in a league where everybody's running when there is adversity, we got Giannis staying committed to the Bucks, and I think Milwaukee and their city deserves that. So I'm excited to see the next version of this Giannis era in Milwaukee.
Hit subscribe for more news, highlights, and analysis from the NBA on NBC.